So if you're ever feeling sad or down and out and you want to just lay in bed all day, you're doom scrolling on the phone or you're going out on doomer night walks and you tell yourself, what's the point? That's exactly the point. Your mindset itself, because you've put it in your brain that this is as far as you go, that's exactly where you. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Neo Starling, and I am back here with a special edition of Big Brother Neo's podcast. Yes, we are now in the year 2025. No longer are we in the holds of 2024. That year is now gone. It is in the past, so to speak. It is no longer in our plane of reality. So we have to focus on what's happening now in our lives. And it's really important that we do that. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things today. And you know how often we have what are often referred to as New Year's resolutions, and there will be times that for some reason or another, we do not accomplish our goals. We stay in the back end and never really achieve the upper echelon of success, or at the very least, what we know we're capable of doing at that current point in time. Now, why does that happen? Well, there's a couple of reasons why it could happen, but let's actually talk about it. Let's have a real conversation. So let's say the new year begins and your goal is to lose weight. You want to go to the gym and maybe drop those stubborn 10, 15, 20 pounds that has been plaguing you for Lord knows how long, right? Certainly, I know that's happened with me. So I'm not perfect here. I'm just a guy sharing my opinion and my perspective with all of you. But something interesting happens. You sign up for a gym, you drink a cup of coffee in the morning, you get up, you decide, you know what? I'm going to go to this gym. Today's the day. Today's the beginning of the rest of my life. And I'm going to go to this gym. And you start doing well. You're eating clean. You're drinking plenty of water. Maybe you've quit alcohol or at the very least started a dry January so that you can detox all of the poison that's in your body that has been plaguing you or preventing you from reaching that next level. Well, you do it successfully for a good week or two and you've made some great progress, but somehow you're not seeing the changes you thought that you wanted to see. Now, let's be realistic here. This stuff takes time, okay? We can often feel ashamed of ourselves for quitting or not achieving what we thought we were certainly capable of doing. And then as a result, we revert back to a previous point in time in which we were not proud of ourselves. And that actually has a compound effect on your body. Now what's happening? You're compounding your losses. You're putting your losses together instead of the small victories that you achieved, right? Why are you ashamed? Why is this happening? Well, often shame can come from lack of success, lack of victory, lack of things not going right in your life, whether it be personal or business related. Now, there's plenty of ways that you can combat this, but the first thing that you have to realize and acknowledge first is that you are good enough. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't want to sound like some sappy standard motivational speaker that's going to tell you that your current self is good enough. You know what? Your current self is good enough for now, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a higher ceiling that you can achieve. You can certainly reach that ceiling and then surpass it and break past your limitations. But the reason that doesn't happen is because you first have to acknowledge that the person that exists currently, the one watching or listening to this podcast, you are at your current limit. And you feel ashamed because your current limit isn't good enough. You're even possibly comparing yourselves to your friends and family who have reached higher echelons, higher levels than you have. Now, I can see how that could be a little demoralizing, right? Because maybe you started at the same level that some of your friends started out with and they've surpassed you. Some of them have businesses or are possibly in successful relationships, maybe even married, possibly making 6 or 7 figures or even 8 figures, but you remain the same. You look at yourself in the mirror and you say, damn, this sucks. I suck. I'm a piece of shit. Now, it's okay to think that, but the goal is to get yourself out of that mentality. The neuroplasticity in your brain has to expand and increase. And what is neuroplasticity? Well, that is essentially your brain's way of learning and expanding what it's capable of achieving through time and effort. When you read something, the more you read it, the better you get at reading. The same principle as driving a car. You ever drove a car for the first time and you got on the highway and you were scared to death because you thought you were going to get into this crazy accident and it didn't happen. Not only did you learn how to drive, but It's gotten to a point where your body sort of does it on autopilot. And the amazing thing about neuroplasticity is that you actually create these new neural pathways in your brain in order to learn more through failure. Yes, I'm going to say that again. Have you ever failed so horribly at something that you learned your lesson and you told yourself, this is not going to affect me anymore? Well, the reason that happened was because you failed enough at that moment where you were able to imprint that information in your brain. You calloused your brain to a point where that failure was no longer going to become a deterrent in your life, because now that you've recognized it, now that you've seen the monster in the closet and you know what it looks like, you were able to combat it. So when you started becoming afraid of driving and you were on the highway, and now suddenly you got to a point where you can like listen to music or switch videos on the fly while you're driving, that's because that those neural pathways in your brain grew through failure. I say this in a lot of videos and I'm going to say this here again. WD-40 stands for water displacement 40th attempt. Could you imagine that? Naming a great success after all of your failures? That's really impressive when you stop and think about it. And sure, there's shame in that because, well, let me rephrase that. There's not shame in calling it that. The shame existed during the process, during attempts 10th and 15th and 20th, where they just kept failing and failing. But those new neural pathways were being built in their minds and they were able to achieve and learn more towards a point where they reached that level. But a lot of it comes from the acknowledgement that the current version of you that exists is you. It doesn't matter how much you know or how little you know, this is your current level. And once you've acknowledged what your current level is, you can start a process of attaining a greater level of understanding of yourself. And once you've reached that greater level of understanding, you can start to conquer your goals in small incremental changes. Y'all have to do things slowly. You got to realize something. Again, when you go to the gym for the first time, you're not going to see a lot of progress in the first week, first month, heck, maybe even first year, depending on how often you're going. You got to be consistent. Even if you did something as small as doing the elliptical for 20 minutes, and that's all you were able to do because you were huffing and puffing and you were out of breath and you were sweating profusely, those 20 and 30 minutes adapted your body to the point where if you just keep doing it, those 20 minutes are going to turn into 30 and then 40, then 50, then an hour. And then from there, you can start maybe doing some weightlifting, maybe some push-ups. If you had difficulty doing a pull-up, that's one of the most difficult workouts to do. A lot of people can't do pull-ups. But if you train and practice it enough, your mind and your body is going to improve to the point where you now can do those pull-ups. You are now learning. You have opened a new branch in your mind where now you're suddenly realizing that you are capable of succeeding in the things that you want to do as long as you keep going and as long as you keep pushing forward. Because they say when you're going through hell, keep going. You have to push past your mental limitations and the understanding that you are not perfect. I am not perfect. I've been doing this podcast for a couple of years now. Heck, I haven't even cracked 1,000 subscribers. I would love to this year. And you know what? It can happen. If I'm consistent, if I produce videos constantly, if I give you good content, if I produce good quality, you can learn from the lessons that I'm trying to give. And granted, I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but that doesn't mean I don't have anything to offer. I have experience. I am 41 years old. I have been on this world for a period of time that has allotted me certain experiences in which I've had to personally overcome myself. Now, granted, for you, the experience is going to be different. No one is going to have an easy time, and there's no specific blueprint that any individual could follow that's going to lead you to the pathway of success. You have to find out on your own. But the only way you're going to find out what you're made of is to first acknowledge what you currently are not. Okay? If you are ashamed because you feel like you've been left behind by your peers, that doesn't mean that it has to be that way. You don't have to remain in the darkness. You can rise above the heavens. You can rise from the ashes like a phoenix and actually build yourself, build the person that you've established, or at the very least have in your mind an idea of who you want to be. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and a lot of other bodybuilders back in the day, right, before we had the internet and cell phones and social media, a lot of them used to hang up posters of other bodybuilders. And the reason they did that was because that was their form of inspiration. They were able to see it in their minds that this is what they wanted to look like. I believe Arnold had Reg Parker on his wall, and he wanted to be a bodybuilder. And Arnold has achieved so much, even in spite of people telling him that because he had a crazy accent, he wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. But he did. He did. And so can you. And you know what? If you're looking at this video and you're thinking to yourself, heck, this is a lot of malarkey. He sounds just like every other person that's trying to give me advice. I need you to realize that some of you are right. Absolutely. If all you get from what I'm telling you is that I sound just like everybody else, then you're missing the plot completely. Because you once more have to acknowledge that there is something within you that is preventing you from achieving that next level. And some of you aren't going to do it. There are plenty of you that won't make it. He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually correct. And the reason for that is because your mindset plays a primary determining factor on how far you go. And when I say mindset, think about that neuroplasticity that I spoke about earlier. Think about these new neural pathways in your mind that get created from you experiencing failure, or heck, experiencing just hard work and determination. Maybe you're studying for an exam so that you can get certified to reach the next level of a job that you want to be in. It can be boring. You might have to brew a couple of pots of coffee, but once you push through it and you get the knowledge and you get that certification, that victory has been solidified, not only physically, something tangible, but also psychologically. Now you know that you're capable of going into the next step. We all need to set goals for ourselves ultimately, because I believe us as human beings, we need things to look forward to. And that's why I believe when you're training for something like a Spartan race or a color run, or just, like a 3K or 10K, marathon, whatever the case may be, whatever you're training for, once you have a deadline date on you having to do this particular task, you do work harder. You step it up another gear, because now you're being tested. It's no longer you just saying, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow or the next day. No, I mean, you can, but then if you leave yourself unprepared, you're not going to achieve that level. I remember when I did my first Spartan race, that's exactly what happened. I was highly unprepared to do this race, but I gave myself 3 months. And in those 3 months, I was running, I was doing a buttload of push-ups and burpees, and I was doing a lot of weightlifting. I was eating cleaner. And by the time the Spartan race came, I did it. Yeah, man. And you know what? It even rained during that day, which made it more dramatic. It sort of felt like a movie, when I was crossing that finish line with all this water like dripping down my face from the rain, making the terrain harder to run on, making the obstacles more difficult to do. It felt even more gratifying knowing that I accomplished something difficult. And then you plan out the next race and the next, and then you have your trifecta. And before you know it, you're building these new neural pathways in your brain, and you're acknowledging that your mindset shift was just what you needed in order to get to the next level. So if you're ever feeling sad or down and out and you want to just lay in bed all day, you're doom scrolling on the phone, or you're going out on doomer night walks, and you tell yourself, what's the point? That's exactly the point. Your mindset itself, because you've put it in your brain that this is as far as you go, that's exactly where you stay. You have to push yourself. Listen, a lot of us do what's called biohacks, right? We take all these vitamins, whether we're taking like a multivitamin or vitamin D, or we're taking anything that we can in order to increase the longevity of our bodies. We do all these biohacks so that we can perform better. But you also have to do psychological hacks as well. They're very important. The mind is the body and the body is the mind. They go hand in hand together. There is no separation. One cannot exist without the other. So once you've reached that point of understanding that your mind needs just as much work as your body does, you can start to break through that ceiling that you thought was insurmountable. If you know that you're laying down in bed all day, something as simple as going out for a 10-minute walk can automatically make you feel better. You know what I mean? You're getting a blood rush into your body. Wake up first thing in the morning and drink a couple of glasses of water, take a shower. That's the first thing I do every day. I work from home. My job is remote. I work right from this room where I'm recording this podcast. And even though I'm not traveling into the office, the first thing I do in the morning when I get up is make my bed, drink 2 glasses of cold water, and then I take a shower. Even though I know that I can stay in my underwear all day, I take a shower and get dressed as if I had to leave, because it's doing 2 things for me. One, it's refreshing my physical body so that I feel more refreshed and I can get up and do what I have to do. But 2, it's also psychologically priming myself to understand that I am in work mode and I have to get these things done. Because if I don't get them done, no one is going to do it for me. No one is going to take care of you. There are people in life that will support what you're doing, even if you're not doing so well, but that has an expiration date. There's only so much anyone can take before you've reached a point of no return in somebody's mind, okay? So realize that as you get older and your bones get weaker and your energy levels are drained and you're just psychologically out of it because you don't feel like that spring chicken that you once were when you were in your 20s. Understand that no matter how much time we have left on this world before we leave this mortal coil, okay, we can achieve a higher level of, if not for us, but for the people around us that we care about. Some of us have families, and I don't mean like just a brother, sister, cousin, niece, nephew. I'm talking about children. Some of us have actual kids that we might want to be around for longer, right? Now, if you want to, live long enough to hopefully be a grandparent yourself, you know what I mean, and be in your kids' lives in a meaningful way, these things are important because you're also setting examples for them as well. You want to give them good work ethic and good habits as they get older so that they could become productive members of society, but also for themselves. Because the worst thing in this world is to lose your mind. Wasted talent, wasting the opportunities that are presented to us is really a tragedy because we are extremely capable. I'll utilize a video game example before I stop this episode because I feel like I've been harping on long enough about this topic. But think about when you're playing a video game and you start with your character sheet, right? Now you can physically affect the way your character looks. You can make them look, be really muscular, very tall, or you can make them fat and short or bald or however you want to make them. You can physically customize the way the character looks, but no matter how big and strong they look, they still start at level 1. Okay. And each level that you grow that character, you have a stat sheet, right? You have your strength, your intelligence, your dexterity, your charisma, and each level you're putting a new level on this character sheet in order to improve that character. And as a result, the person that you're playing, the avatar, which is just an extension of you, is able to conquer this imaginary world that you find yourself in. So think about it in that way. You are that character, okay? You are the Ubermensch. You are the Superman. You are capable of succeeding and reaching a higher level, but you have to do it one level at a time, okay? Small incremental changes will give you a lot of dividends. You will gain so much more from that versus just sulking in your own self-pity, okay? So let this be the year. And I know New Year's resolutions sound corny, but realistically, give yourself a frame of reference of some sort, reference the former you from the year before towards the you that you want to become now and grow from that. Now, with that said, done.